Hey nerd fighters! Welcome to Ancestry Lands, your go-to channel for land ownership, preparedness, motivation, and so much more. Today, we're diving into a hot topic: education. We spend over a decade in school, yet leave feeling unprepared for the real world. It's like being handed a spork when you need a chainsaw. So today, we're talking about 25 life skills that should be taught in school, but aren't. Okay, first up, individual thought. Now, I'm not saying schools are actively trying to create mindless drones, but they're not exactly encouraging independent thinking either. Instead of training kids to think independently, most schools have them regurgitating information like parrots. It's all about standardized tests and fitting neatly into boxes. But real individuality shouldn't be so rare that people are thinking they're unique because they ordered oat milk instead of almond at Starbucks. Come on, people. We're capable of so much more than just picking between pre-selected options. We need to start questioning things, challenging the status quo, and forming our own opinions. So, Lesson 1. Let's stop the groupthink. Let's raise a generation of critical thinkers who aren't afraid to challenge the norm. Host pauses, looks around, as if making sure he's not being watched by big school. Host whispers. They'll probably send the math police after me for saying this. But seriously, we need to encourage kids to use their brains for more than just memorizing multiplication tables. Next up, we're talking survival, and I don't mean acing a pop quiz. Schools should teach students how to survive, like real-world skills. I'm talking wilderness first aid, self-defense, and yes, some firearms training, because it's important to know how to protect ourselves. Look, I'm not saying we need to turn schools into some post-apocalyptic training ground, but a little practical knowledge never hurt anyone. Imagine if, instead of dissecting frogs, students learned how to build a fire, find water, or even just change a tire. And while we're at it, let's throw in some gardening for good measure. Because believe me, in an emergency, kale is going to be more valuable than quadratic equations. Plus, knowing how to grow your own food is pretty empowering. It's like saying to the world, hey, I'm not entirely dependent on your complex system of grocery stores and supply chains. Knowing how to survive isn't just about being prepared for a zombie apocalypse. Although, let's be real, that would be pretty cool. It's about being resourceful, independent, and adaptable. All right, let's talk about failure. It's a part of life. It's inevitable. It's pretty much guaranteed to happen to you at some point. But instead of teaching kids that failure's just a step toward success, we scare them into thinking it's the end of the world. And then, when they face a real challenge and stumble, they crumble. Life is more like a Rocky movie. You get knocked down, then you get up, and then you get knocked down again. But hey, that's life. It's about getting back up, dusting yourself off, and learning from your mistakes. So, let's ditch the fear of failure and embrace resilience. Chapter 4. Logic, Reasoning, and Public Discourse. Can we stop the screaming match, please? Okay, this next one is a big one. Logic, reasoning, and public discourse. I don't know if you've noticed, but public discourse these days, well, it's less let's discuss our viewpoints and more two people scream at each other until they forget what they were fighting about. It's like everyone's stuck in a perpetual Twitter war, armed with nothing but emojis and bad grammar. And the worst part? No one's actually listening. Maybe if we taught some logic and reasoning, we could stop the spread of idiocracy. Imagine a world where people could disagree respectfully, back up their arguments with evidence, and actually listen to each other. We need to teach kids how to think critically, analyze information, and form their own opinions based on facts, not just feelings. So let's ditch the shouting matches and embrace the power of reasoned debate. Because let's be real, the world needs more critical thinkers, not just louder voices. Chapter 5. Personal Finance. Because money doesn't grow on trees unless you invest it in those trees. Let's talk about money, shall we? Specifically, personal finance. Seriously, the only thing I learned in school about money was how fast it disappears. I remember sitting through economics class, wondering when we were going to get to the part where they taught us how to actually manage our finances, but it never came. Instead, we learned about supply and demand curves, which, while fascinating, didn't exactly help me balance my checkbook. Instead, teach kids how to save, budget, and invest so they don't get stuck in a cycle of debt. I'd even recommend they start with the book, which has the best finance advice you'll find. Apparently, everything you need to know about money can fit on an index card. If only calculus was that easy, right? Seriously though, personal finance should be a mandatory subject in school. It's a life skill that everyone needs, regardless of their career aspirations. Chapter 6. Self-defense. More than just karate chops, but those are cool too. Alright, next up is self-defense. And no, I'm not just talking about learning how to throw a punch, although that's definitely a useful skill. I'm talking about awareness, intuition, and setting boundaries. Schools should be teaching kids how to be aware of their surroundings, trust their gut instincts, and protect themselves both physically and emotionally. Self-defense is more than karate chops and cool poses. It's about boundaries and situational awareness. It's about knowing how to de-escalate a situation, how to get out of a dangerous situation, and how to defend yourself if necessary. Plus, maybe they could throw in some zombie apocalypse prep in there too. You know, just in case. Hey, you never know. Chapter 7. Creativity. Unleashing the inner artist, and maybe a jazz routine or two. Okay, let's talk about creativity. The world needs creative minds now more than ever, yet school has a way of squashing that right out of us. It's all about conformity, memorization, and fitting into neat little boxes. But creativity is messy, unpredictable, and often doesn't fit neatly into a standardized test. So let's encourage creativity, right brain thinking, and maybe even throw in a little bit of dance or improv. Imagine a world where kids were encouraged to think outside the box, to experiment, to take risks, and to express themselves freely. Schools might actually be a lot more fun if they were more like a variety show. Imagine, hey, today we're doing physics and a jazz routine. Okay, maybe that's a bit much, but you get the idea. Let's nurture those creative sparks and see what amazing things they can ignite. Chapter 8. Credit cards, bills, and taxes. Oh my. Navigating the adulting maze. And finally, let's talk about the dreaded A word. Adulting. Specifically, all the financial stuff that comes with it. Schools should absolutely cover this. Why not throw in a lesson on day 1 where the teacher dramatically cuts up a credit card? It'd be like, Welcome to Money Management 101. The first rule, plastic is not your friend. Seriously though, we need to teach kids about credit cards, interest rates, bills, taxes, loans, all the stuff that can feel like a foreign language if you're not taught about it. Imagine how much easier it would be to navigate the adult world if you already had a basic understanding of how these things worked. So let's ditch the algebra equations for a day and teach kids how to balance a checkbook, how to file their taxes, and how to avoid getting into crippling debt. Because let's be real, knowing how to manage your money is a superpower in today's world. Outro, own your journey, and maybe some property too. So, those were my top 25 life skills that schools be teaching. Did I miss any? Drop your nominations in the comments below. And hey, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Here on Ancestry Lands, we believe that whether it's real estate, survival skills, or real-world knowledge, own your journey. Learn everything you can, question everything you hear and never stop exploring the world around you. And remember, you either own property or you'll be owned as property. See you next time.